there's any architects in the audience, and y'all would like the credit, you can see me after the tour. The cornerstone of St. Edward Catholic Church was laid in 1901, and the building was completed in 1905. The interior was finished and dedicated in 1911. The church was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1982 for its Gothic Revival design by Little Rock architect Charles L. Thompson. A significant number of German immigrants came to Arkansas in the 1870s and 1880s. Many of these people were German Catholics who had fled their native land to escape Bismarck's culture kampf. The German word culture kampf, literally meaning culture struggle, refers to the legally sanctioned discrimination and harassment of Catholics in the German Empire carried out by Prime Minister Otto von Bismarck from 1871 to 1878. Bismarck's anti-Catholic policies were enacted in response to his perceived political threat being the Pope and a growing number of Catholic converts. Fleeing persecution, these German immigrants were drawn to Arkansas by the railroad companies and by the Catholic Church. For example, the Little Rock and Fort Smith Railway worked closely with Bishop Edward Fitzgerald to advertise the land in the Arkansas River Valley between Little Rock and Fort Smith to German Catholics. The railroad company wanted people to settle along the route, thereby creating a market for their services. St. Benedict's Colony, located near Paris in Logan County, was founded in 1877 on land donated by the Little Rock and Fort Smith Railroad. The colony was created after Bishop Fitzgerald encouraged Benedictines from St. Margaret's Abbey in southern Indiana to establish a mission on what was then the western frontier. In 1891, St. Benedict's Colony became an independent monastery, and the name was changed to Subiaco Subiaco provided Benedictine priests for St. Edward's until 1992. In 1880, the Cathedral of St. Andrew was the only Catholic church in Little Rock. Because of the influx of new German-speaking Catholics, Father Felix Rumpf, Order of St. Benedict, was appointed assistant pastor at St. Andrew's Cathedral in 1883 to minister to those German-speaking members of the congregation. In 1884, Bishop Edward Fitzgerald, the second bishop of the Diocese of Little Rock, which includes all Catholics in Arkansas, still does, and at that time included Indian territory, what's now Oklahoma. So Bishop Fitzgerald sanctioned the creation in 1884 of a German-speaking parish at Little Rock, and he donated 3 city lots, which were each worth $400 apiece at that time, on East 9th Street, for the construction of the new church. Construction of the first church began in September of 1884. The first church faced south on 9th Street and was located about the middle of the block between Sherman and Ferry. So it was actually situated right out the back of this church and faced south toward the Parker Park. It was a 2-story wood frame building with overall dimensions of 40 by 90 feet. The building had a front-facing gable roof and a central steeple. The first floor had a 14-foot ceiling and housed a school and the priest's living quarters. The second floor had a 22-foot ceiling and now was a worship space. The total construction cost for that building was $6,510, which included pews and other furnishings for the church as well as desks for the school. The church was dedicated on August 26, 1885 to St. Edward, King and Confessor, in honor of Bishop Edward Fitzgerald's patron saint. Reverend Felix Rumpf was the first pastor of the church. The church bell was manufactured in 1886 by the Buckeye Bell Foundry in Cincinnati, Ohio, and weighed 1,203 pounds. It was purchased by St. Edward's parishioner and Little Rock saloon keeper, Nick Furley. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but Nick Furley, in memory of his wife Rosa, who died on July 9, 1885. And the text on the bell had all of that on there. is not in reference to a true saint recognized by the Catholic Church, but a term of endearment that he used for his wife. The second church, this church, was constructed because the congregation had outgrown the 1885 building. The cornerstone for this church was laid on November 10, 1901, at the corner of East 9th and Sherman Streets, west of the first church building. An article published in the Arkansas Gazette that day, saying that they laid the cornerstone November 10, 1901, provided information about the new church. I'm going to read a little bit of that article for you. Quote, every Sunday, early in the morning, service begins, and the church is always filled 3 to 4 times a day. The old church, which is not at all a small building, has become insufficient for their numbers. The necessity has become imperative to erect a larger and handsomer church. Larger for the increasing number of its members, handsomer to be in keeping with the growth of a prosperous city. The site on 9th and Sherman Streets is the most beautiful place in the city for a church, being situated opposite the beautiful city park, now a park club. This fact demands a more costly, creditable edifice. To accomplish this, our German Catholics have received many encouragements, and it is their aim to meet all expectations and to keep up the record that the German congregations enjoy everywhere else. It continued on. The new church is being built in the form of a cross. Everyone see that? We're sitting in the day. There's a cross, the transept in front of you, going across north to south. When completed, the church will be 140 feet long. At present, only 112 feet are being built. The sanctuary proper, or the area up here where I am around the high altar, will be added later, and that part will be 28 feet long. The width of the church in front of the towers is 62 feet. The interior arrangements will have much similarity to that of St. Andrew's Cathedral. The roof will be supported by pillars. The height from floor to the ceiling, will be less in the new church than in the cathedral, and this will be done with a view to secure good acoustics. Mr. Charles L. Thompson is the architect of the building. The contractor for the foundation of the church, Mr. William Mara, will have completed his work within a few days. The beautiful, massive appearance of the granite ashlar facings attract the attention and admiration of all. The second and present church was completed in the spring of 1905 and was dedicated on July 4th, 1905. There was a 5-day celebration of the dedication, beginning on July 2nd. The church was blessed by the Right Reverend Edward P. Allen, Bishop of Mobile, Alabama, because Bishop Fitzgerald was ill at that time. Sermons were given in German and in English following the dedication. And this brings up an interesting point. Sermons here at St. Edward's were given in German for many years. In fact, they gave them in German until World War I, whenever Bishop Morris issued a directive to all Catholic churches in Arkansas that sermons should no longer be given in German as an act of patriotism on their part. The interior of St. Edward's was not completed until 1911, and a second dedication took place on July 4th, 1911. The service was conducted by Bishop John Baptist Morris, the third Catholic bishop of the Diocese of Little Rock. Father Morris Romer was pastor of St. Edward's at that time. The total cost for the second church, this building, was $113,787. The exterior cost a little bit over $54,000, and the interior was a little bit over $59,600. So they spent more on the inside of the church than they did the outside. In the late 19th century, the English Gothic Revival style was very popular, especially for churches, because it embraced medieval forms and details which drew the eye upward toward God and toward heaven. St. Edward's was laid out in the shape of a cross, I just told you, with the nave, the area where the pews are, the transept, the north and south cross portion up here, and the sanctuary or apse area around the high altar behind it. The congregation, who are all facing east, Toward the rising sun, which serves as a reminder that Jesus is the Son of God and the light of the world. St. Edward is one of the few Gothic Revival style buildings ever designed by the Thompson firm. Interestingly, Thompson's original design for the church included two huge tall spires on top of each one on top of each of the towers out front. And I've got a photo of the drawing with me if anybody wants to see that. Those spires were never built, probably because they were cost prohibitive. Nevertheless, the church is a great example of Gothic Revival design. Characteristics include multiple towers, the lancet and chimney arch window and door openings, buttresses on the sides, stained glass windows with elaborate tracery, crockets or finials on the transepts. The building's foundation is made of locally quarried granite, and the exterior walls are gray-brown brick. The lintels, sills, and all of the exterior trim are made out of marble from Carthage, Missouri, identified by running veins which resemble cracks. The roof is patterned slate, which was replicated and repaired in 1993. And the 1886 church bells moved from the old church to the north tower of this church, and it's still there today. The church interior features ornate plasterwork. The plaster of St. Edward's, which was done at a time when the daily wage of plaster was about $1.50. The plaster here cost $32,000. And this price tag, of course, was the result of delicate arches. You've got to see arches all around you, as well as all the rosettes on the ceiling, different sizes and shapes of those, all trimmed in pale pink and 23-karat gold leaf. When the present church was completed in 1995, and before the interior decoration was finished, they brought high altars and the altars of Mary and Joseph over here to this building. And then the latter high altar and side altars, 5 in all, were dedicated on October 13, 1912. These altars were made in Germany, and they were shipped here to Little Rock. They were hand-carved linden wood with onyx pillars. The high altar featured statues of Edward the Confessor in the top center, which is still there. The English king who built St. Peter's Abbey, now Westminster Abbey, as well as St. Catherine on the left and St. Henry on the right. And those were put on the high altar because they were the patron saints of Henry and Catherine Schneeds, who donated real estate and money to St. Edward's Church. The Last Supper was depicted in the center of the altar table. The high altar from 1912 was destroyed by fire in 1964 and was rebuilt. So that's not what you guys know. To get an idea of how that altar originally looked, you look at over here, Mary and Joseph, these two altars, they are made of carved wood with pillars, so you get an idea of the appearance of the original altar, and I'll talk more about that. The stained glass windows were imported from Germany as well, and most were donated by parishioners and have names at the bottom. The 14 Stations of the Cross, which depict the suffering and the passion of Jesus, are also from Germany. The plaster scenes are about 3 feet tall, and each one has a cross above it. They originally had German inscriptions. If you're close enough to see one, you can see they have inscriptions on the bottom too to tell about what that station is. And those were originally written in German. They were redone in English later. And the statues of the saints, there's one up here, and then all the way around the cap, 12 different pillars inside the church. Those were installed in 1910 and 1911 during the original interior decoration. Okay, the south side of the church, so this side, my left, your right, this side of the church, south side of the church, is the epistle side. And the north side of the church is the gospel side. And if you notice, the stained glass windows on the epistle side or south over here are all male. They're all male saints. Looking back at these windows. And all the windows over here, and those 4 going back on the north side of the gospel side, those are all female saints. Okay? Okay? And in the turn of the 20th century, it was common practice for women to sit on this side and men to sit on this side. And when this church was first completed in 1905, the lighting consisted of sconces like the ones that are here now. These are newer sconces. Everybody see what I'm talking about? Low lights, columns. That was all that was here in 1905. The overhead lights, all these little lights, they were installed in 1911 by the Arkansas Electric Company, and there's an interesting story about that. So all the overhead lighting, with the exception of those really ornate pieces going right through there by the stained glass windows, those have a different story as well. Those lamps are different, installed here in 1952. But all the small overhead lighting was done in 1911 by the Arkansas Electric Company as indemnity or compensation for an accident that was suffered by Father Morris Romer, who was then the pastor here at St. Edward's. According to an article in The Guardian, in early August 1911, Father Morris Romer was hospitalized after his horse-drawn carriage was struck by a streetcar. And he was seriously injured and recovered. And the Arkansas Electric Company, which then owned that particular streetcar, compensated the priest with lighting for the new church. The church featured wrought iron sacristy panels and gates, as well as door hinges on the exterior and the exterior lamps. Those were manufactured by Benz Brothers Iron and Wire Works of Little Rock. They were then located at 1018 Center Street, and Benz Iron Works is still in business today out on 440. And you may think, if you're not Catholic, what are sacristy panels and gates? You can get a better view of them from where I am. They're black wrought iron panels and gates. The room here to my right, back here behind me on the other side of the high altar, those are the sacristy rooms. And the sacristy is the area where vestments and sacred vessels are kept. And in the case of St. Edward's, they had a double sacristy for two. And the one on the north side of the church is used by the clergy, and the one on the south side back behind me is used by altar servers and girls now too. The organ was purchased in 1909 for $5,000. It was refurbished in 1986 for $60,000. During the 1986 project, you can turn around and see the pipes up there. Whenever they refurbished it in 86, they moved the pipes around so you could actually see the rose window on the west side. Originally, you couldn't see it from inside the church. They moved it to where you could see the rose window. There was some redecoration done inside the church in 1952. It was pretty significant. In 52, and we were talking about this earlier, Al and I were talking about this earlier, I read over and over again in 52 there were 12 bronze lamps installed in the church. If you count, how many do you count? 6 in here, and you count 3 out in the front area in our beds, so that's 9. We don't know where the other 3 are. But I read over and over again 12 of these bronze lamps, the fancy lamps. You see what I'm talking about? There's 3 on this side, 3 on the north side. Everybody follow me? Okay. Those lamps were installed in here in 1952. They were purchased from Worthing Bank and Trust Company, then located at 401 South Main Street, now the KATV building. They were redecorating at that time, and they removed the stoves of all those lamps. So somebody here at St. Ed's found out about it. They were worth about, at that time, they were about 200, so they said. They actually purchased 14, and 2 of them went to Mary Lake Monastery at East End. So maybe they got more than 2. Maybe that's why. The church's interior walls were originally had a very simple painted decoration or stenciling on them, just on the borders, right over the arches along the ceiling. The interior was re-stenciled in 1952 by the Cole brothers for $12,100. 3 sons of Steve L. Cole Sr., who was an accomplished painter, and he died in 1945. 3 of his sons, he had more than 3, but 3 of them were also painters, and they formed Cole Brothers Painters after their father's death. The Cole brothers had Steve Jr., Also, Cole Brothers, several parishioners kicked in, I think it was $100 per panel, and they're very small panels. But these panels here with the gold leaf, everybody see those? There's 10 of those panels. Yeah, 10 panels of the high altar. They were done with gold leaf by the Cole Brothers as well at that time, too. So, 64-5. On the evening of Sunday, January 12, 1964, some Catholic high school boys were leading a basketball game at the St. Edward's Gymnasium back behind me, and noticed that the church was on fire. So they immediately reported the fire, but the church was already filled with smoke. 3 hours later, the smoke blackened the tabernacle and the Holy Sacrament were recovered from the church. Sacred vessels were tarnished but not otherwise damaged. The fire started here in the south transept, where votive candles were burning at the shrine of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. That shrine and the high altar were the most heavily damaged. St. Benedict and St. Scholastica windows, back here behind the high altar, they were destroyed, and St. John the Evangelist's window, that one melted. The stained glass windows that were not destroyed by the fire, all the other ones in here, were severely damaged. There was extensive damage to the sacristy, these rooms, the sanctuary floor, meaning this area at the front, closest to the high altar, and the church basement, because the floor was wood at that time, so everything just kind of fell down in the basement. Bishop Edward Fitzgerald wanted the altars and the windows to be restored as closely as possible to their original appearance. The restoration of the church was underway by July 1964. It happened in January. By July, they were doing restoration. Leo Heigl of Little Rock, an architectural firm of Weaver and Heigl, was in charge of the entire project. Now, construction company of Conway was tasked with structural repairs and repainting. The Ludwig Sherman Studios of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was in charge of restoring and rebuilding the damaged altars, windows, and statues. The high altar was actually restored by a descendant of the original builder. Ludwig Sherman helped locate Ferdinand Stoffler, who succeeded his father as proprietor of the woodcarving studio, which made the original high altar. He had moved his shop from Germany to a little village in northern Italy that they tracked him down, and he happened to have his father's plans for the original high altar. So he was able to reconstruct it. The replacement had 3 differences from the original. It did not have the onyx pillars like you see on these side ones still, and they added a lot of gold leaf to it, and they separated, of course it was 64, so it was just perfect for the Second Vatican Council and all changes that had come about after Vatican II, and so they were able to get it made with a separate altar table. It could be moved away from the altar screen, which was a part of Vatican II, so the priest could say Mass facing the church. The windows of St. Benedict and St. Scholastica and St. John the Evangelist, they were all rebuilt in Germany. Sherman repaired and restored every other window in the studio in Tulsa. Every single window here was taken out. You can imagine. Each piece of glass, even on these that were not destroyed, they were all damaged by smoke. Each piece of glass had to be removed, cleaned, repainted, refired, relit, and then put back into the frame. After the fire, the church's wooden floor was replaced with concrete, covered with terrazzo. During the repair work, the parish hall was used for Mass. In April 1865, they were able to have services in here again, and the work was finished in August 1965. The last restoration of St. Edward's began in 2001 and was completed in May 2002. At that time, the stenciling was repainted by artist Becky Witzel based on historical photographs of the church interior. The total cost of that project was $650,000. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of the buildings on the campus that have this whole block. So, it's important to talk about the school, the Sisters' Home, and the rectory. When St. Edward's Parish was created in 1884, there was a provision for a school. The school opened in September 1885 with 64 students, and it was originally located in the first floor of that 1885 church building. followed briefly by the Benedictine sisters from Jonesboro. But beginning in 1895, the Benedictine sisters from St. Scholastica's Convent in Shoal Creek, Arkansas, were engaged to teach the children. And the St. Scholastica Monastery later moved to Fort Smith, where it still is today. After the current church was completed in 1905, the school remained in that original 1885 building, which sat directly behind the new church and faced south on 9th Street. The parish hall also occupied part of that building. In the 1920s, the old church and school building was moved over to the east just a little bit. It was picked up and moved to right on the corner of 9th and Ferry, but it still faced south on 9th Street. And it was also a brick veneer that was added to the building at that time as well. By the 1950s, that old school and parish hall was deemed unrepairable and unsafe. So a new school, located at 816 Ferry Street, faced to the east on Ferry, was built to replace it. Construction on the new school began in October 1954, was completed in April 1955, and the old building was then demolished. In 1963, a classroom wing and gymnasium were added to the 1955 school, and that's the part that you see right there that faces 9th Street now, the corner of 9th and Ferry. That's the 63 gymnasium classroom wing. In 2007, a new school building was constructed. It's right up here. You all saw when we came in, just north of this church, faces to the west on Sherman. 2007, a new school building was constructed on the site of the old rectory and is connected to the 1955 school libraries. In 1897, the sisters, who had originally lived in that 1885 church and school building, they moved into an old wood frame school located over here at the southeast corner of 8th and Sherman Streets. And that's interesting because some of the first schools ever in Little Rock clustered around that area. But they moved into an old school and the parish bought it from the Little Rock School District. That old school served as the sisters' home until the two-story brick convent that's still there now in that corner was built in 1927 on that same site. The sisters helped to staff the school, and they lived there in that building, the sisters' home, until 1997. The building was then used as church offices, and it's still church offices today. The rectory was originally located in part of that first floor of the original 1885 building. After construction of this church, the rectory was located in a one-story little house just to the north of the current building faced west on Sherman Street. That rectory was demolished in 1953, and they built a new one on the same site, completed in December 1953. And the 53 rectory is the one they demolished built in the 2007 school building. So if you look at maps of this site, everything is moved around, it's pretty interesting. The Benedictine priests based at Subiaco Abbey, who had served St. Edward for more than a century, left the parish in 1992 due to a shortage of priests. Since that time, the parish has been served by priests from the Diocese of Little Rock. In 1994, Bishop Edward designated St. Edward's as the Spanish-speaking sermons in the diocese. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, there was a Polish presence here at St. Edward's as well. In 1994, St. Edward's actually had an associate pastor who was Polish. And for a brief time, masses were offered in English, Spanish, and Polish every Sunday here at St. Edward's. That was in 1994. And due to a shortage of sisters, St. Edward's School is now staffed by laypersons. The school offers instruction in pre-K through 8th grade, and when they ended this school year, just this few days ago, they ended the school year with 154 students. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff I can talk about on the interior, but I'm going to do my best to cover most of it. If you have specific questions, you can ask me after this. The high altar, everybody understands that was rebuilt in 1964 by a descendant of the original craftsman based on the original drawings. I told you about the statues and what they did already. And the statues, from what I understand, were already there. They were, damaged by smoke in the 64 fire. Those are the same statues that were on the original high altar. Oh, and about what they call them, that's kind of interesting. Edward the Confessor, the top middle on the high altar, was a church building in his And you notice the man on the left side of that has a crown on his head. Anybody see that? There's a crown on one of the men's heads, and that's to show that purgatory, you can happen to all classes of people. You're not exempt. The altar rail, which was right up here in front and separated this area of the sanctuary from the rest of the church, that was removed after the 1964 fire, also as part of Vatican II. And it was stored upstairs for many years, and it was discarded in the early 1990s. The old ornate confessionals that were taken out after Vatican II, they were also stored upstairs, and in 1994, parts of those old ornate confessionals were used to build two altars in the church, which are still here. The one over here in the north transept to Our Lady of Guadalupe, and then over here on the south side to Our Lady of Jehovah, and that's in Polish, Spanish. Okay. South side, St. Joseph altar, right here next to me. Hardwood, honest pillars, the angels hold banners saying, "We bless you, praise you." And the citizen on the wall, on these two panels here, next to this altar, that's pretty interesting. It relates to Joseph as patron of a happy death. And so there are dancing deer. Can you all see those? Yeah. Okay. Dancing deer at the top of one of those panels. And that's symbolic of Psalm 42, where the Christian yearns for God as the deer for water. The second image down below that shows it depicts the last rites and the oil, the soul, and the candle. And the candle is extinguished whenever somebody takes their last breath and blows the candle out. And the bottom image is for St. Joseph as checked. Shrine to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which is right over the corner from me. And that one was originally destroyed in the 64 fire. That's where the original fire started, was at that. But it shows Mary coming in Christ's trial. Our Lady of Jehovah, getting right next to her. The rose windows, on the north, there's 3 rose windows in the church, one in each side of the transept and one on the west side. This one, if you look in the middle of it, says Joseph. Okay? And the large window below the rose window on the north side depicts the death of St. Joseph. That's why that's Joseph, the death of St. Joseph. And then over here on the south side, in the middle, if you can't see this, you can ask me later.